Okay, your second project for the black and white unit is a choice between two projects, and both projects can be really impressive if you follow through with them. Essentially, I'm trying to get you to take that sort of like very, stark black and white sort of design that you kind of got used to in the first project, and I'm trying to get you to expand upon that. So for these, it's kind of the same concerns. Can you make a simpler representation of an object? And then can you take that simple representation and add more to it? Can you make it ornamental? Can you make it really, complex if you need to? Or create variations on it? So both of these projects are exercises in trying to get you to be way more detailed than you probably have to be, but detailed in your own style. What can you add to it that's yours, really? The first design is rooted in nature. So this is called a radial wildlife illustration. You're going to take drawings of just pretty much anything from nature. It can be animals, plants, anything. You're going to make at least 5 drawings of those things. And when possible, try to draw something that's actually alive or really physically there. So try to go find a leaf or a flower that's around, and draw that in a sketchbook or something like that. If you use just a photographic reference, it kind of saps the life out of that drawing, and you don't quite notice things you would have noticed had you actually drawn it from life. When you've got those 5 drawings, you're going to take a large sheet of paper, and you're going to draw them in kind of a radial symmetrical design. Now, radial symmetry just means that when you draw it, you can draw it at least 4 times, or draw it along 2 axes of symmetry. And when you look at the examples, you kind of understand what that means. And if you have trouble drawing this way or copying your symbol in sort of a radial fashion, just ask me for help and I'll show you how. It's not hard. Essentially, once you've traced that a couple of times, you get to render it in black and white. And try to have a lot of fun with this. Add as many non-graphic elements as you want. Add extra patterns, extra designs. Make it a really well-made and super detailed drawing. In essence, you're taking something that starts in nature and you're going to add more to it and make it this complex, almost alien thing. When you look at the examples, you'll sort of notice that. You'll notice that, oh, hey, that's a flower, but now it looks like this super complex kind of pattern. How did they get there? Well, they started with something that was real, and they sort of added their own little twist on it. This is a really good exercise for finding new ideas or finding new designs that may have started somewhere else. Here's a quick explanation of the kinds of symmetry. You're again using radial symmetry. So if you look at the example in the lower left-hand corner here, you have 2 axes of symmetry. There's a horizontal one and there's a vertical one. And no matter what object is copied, it's copied along those axes. You can do it in a rotation like this, or you can do 2 flips. So you can take an object and flip it across the vertical axes and then flip it across the horizontal axes if you want. Or you can play with those symmetries and flip them along any axes that you add. It doesn't necessarily matter which symmetry you use. The symmetry is just going to help you balance the composition, and it's just going to help create patterns really easily. And it'll make you repeat things. The more you repeat a drawing, the more it becomes a part of your own language. So when you look at these examples here, I'll sort of elaborate on what I mean here. First things first, though, take a look at a couple of these professional artist examples. They've already developed their own visual language, so a lot of their drawings here, or a lot of their artwork, has that sort of signature style already. And again, these artists are starting with drawings of things from nature, like Hydro 74 here. He uses owls an awful lot. You see a lot of owls in his work, but he also has that sort of signature pointy line and sort of like triangle shape to his drawings. The only way he's able to develop that is by drawing it a lot. and it becomes part of his style, his language. So real quick, just take a look at a couple of these examples, and then I'll talk about some student examples. Okay, so as you look at some of these student examples, there's a wide variety of examples here. They range in complexity from the super complex like this one to the super simple. And in every single one, there's sort of an overarching style or design element that they repeat an awful lot. The more you repeat a design, the more versed you become in it, and the easier it is to use later on. So use this as kind of practice for your own style, and try to trace something or draw something that you really like. Obviously this artist here, she probably really liked drawing portraits, so she used portraits. Again, you can use any element of nature you want in your design. So just take a look through some of these student examples and sort of think about what you would draw in your drawing if you want to do this project. Your second choice for this group of projects is called the One Object, Many Drawings project, and it's basically what it is. You're going to pick one object and you're going to create about 10 drawings of that object. Now, each of these drawings you're going to use a different media or a different style to render that subject. So, it can be any media. You could use charcoal, you could use paint, you could use pastels. Doesn't matter if it's black and white or not anymore, and the style doesn't matter either. You can be really loose, you can be super abstract, you can be really representational and make it almost a photographic representation of the object. The whole point is to get you out of your little box of like, how do I convey this subject? You're going to explore as many different options as possible, and because you have to do 10 drawings, you know, you're going to run out of ideas pretty quick. I mean, after 5 or so drawings, if you haven't thought of the next 5 drawings, try something you haven't tried before, or use a media that you wouldn't use normally, or combine styles and combine media in new combinations. Hopefully by the end of this you're stumbling upon some new combinations that you haven't really thought about before. The other challenge here is that you know, you're going to play with sort of the audience's relationship to that object. So you don't necessarily have to represent it 100%. Like if you have an object that has a loaded cultural meaning, like if you pick, let's say, a shoe, is somebody wearing the shoe? Is the shoe destroyed? Does it have laces? Like you can play around with the integrity of the object, how whole the object is. Like if you choose food, like a pizza or something, are you just going to draw the crust of the pizza? Are you going to draw a certain brand of the pizza? Are you going to make your own pizza? What angle do you draw it from? Do you draw just a pizza slice or the whole pizza? Like you can really play with how you represent that object. Don't feel like you have to draw the whole thing. Let me talk a little bit about some of these examples here, and then just sort of think of what object you would pick for this assignment, and start to think about the media you would use. What kinds of drawing materials would you use to convey your subject? Also, another requirement of this project is that you make 10 of your drawings on 9x12 sheets of paper. If you really want to use 9x12, you can. I highly recommend you use a larger sheet of paper or use different kinds of papers. Please ask me for different kinds of papers. I'll be happy to facilitate you with different kinds. If you want to draw something on like gray paper or a different size or something like that, be my guest. The larger the drawing, the more room you have to play around with anyway, so that's sometimes a bit advantageous. So here are some student examples. Obviously a good wide range of examples. Obviously they're using like pen or marker in the upper right hand corner, and then the lower right hand corner they're using just white and black charcoal. The one on the left though, I couldn't really say what that's using. Maybe they used spray paint, and maybe they used graphite, or masked out their areas and just sort of shaded over some masking tape or something, and then they peeled the masking tape up and left the kind of outline there. I don't really know, but that just shows you how much you can experiment with your object here. You don't have to represent it in the normal way. Try to figure out a new way to do it, or play with the object. Maybe trace it and then trace it a bunch of times. Who knows? I don't really care how you play around with your representation of the object. Just make sure that you really play with the style, and that you really play with the drawing materials you're using. Now later on in this slideshow there are some examples that use an M16 rifle. This was a student example that was done at a college, or I believe a private art school, where they did not have any restrictions on content. Now you are in a public school, so you cannot choose an object that's a weapon or drugs or inappropriate for school, so please choose an appropriate object. Don't choose something that would get you in trouble, please. And if you're unsure if your object is school appropriate, please come ask me and I'll let you know. The reason I included those examples of the M16 rifle is because that student did an excellent job of playing around with the associations we have with that object. So they really incorporate some extremely bizarre materials and extremely bizarre representations of that object. And they're just fantastic examples of what you can do with this assignment. So really take a look at those and sort of think about maybe picking an object that has some culturally loaded meanings to it, even if it is kind of a simple object, and how you can play with those cultural meanings. Again, really look at all these examples and think about what your object would be, and what media you would use.